Let's bring in now Suzanne Chod, a political science professor at North Central College. It's good to see you, Professor. It's been a little while. We're 29 days away from hosting the DNC here in Chicago. A lot can happen between now and then. Walk us through what we can expect.
So it's interesting that the timeline is expedited, obviously, now that we're more in flux with, of course, who the candidate is going to be. But honestly, things are going to look pretty similar to how they would have looked if Biden were still in the race. The DNC will have a virtual call at the beginning of the month to do their virtual roll call to see where the delegates sit. And if it were Biden in the race, the delegates are not bound to vote for him. And so that doesn't change anything now that he's no longer in the race. The delegates can vote for, in all good conscience is the language, for the candidate that best reflects the sentiments of those that they serve. So they'll get a sense of what that looks like in the virtual roll call, and then we'll get into the convention here in Chicago on the 19th, and we'll do the official vote on the floor. It doesn't really look any different, especially because the party is unifying very quickly just in the past few hours.
Interesting. So this is just a roll call vote. It isn't anything binding. That will actually come during the convention.
That's right. So if this were locked up and let's say we're still Biden and they did the virtual vote, they could then as a committee, as a Democratic National Committee, the delegates could decide to forego that formal vote on the floor. But and even if with Kamala Harris, they're able to get the requisite votes that round to get her over the threshold of delegates, it may still serve the interest of the party to do the official vote on the floor as a sign of unity and excitement about this candidate.
Do you think that there will be anyone who presents, and is it a Democratic, I guess, philosophy here to try to coalesce around Harris at this point, have this roll call early so that they start to show these signs of unity?
Yeah, I mean, this is the question: is that are there other candidates that are going to vie for this nomination? There's discussion of is Joe Manchin going to put his hat in the ring? But anyone that we were really thinking might want to be the candidate has already endorsed her, which they should. It is good for the party. It's good for their prospects in November. And quite frankly, because she's the vice president and she's been in the office and has been on the ticket for the voters that voted for the Biden-Harris ticket, she is the right choice to be the nominee, and the party knows that that's the case.
Who do you think is the right nominee for VP, and what goes into that decision and why?
That's always the question. The data are very clear that whomever's at the bottom of the ticket does not affect the outcome of the election independently. It can get voters more excited about the person at the top of the ticket. But there are a lot of parts of the Democratic Party that are really excited about Kamala Harris now being, or presumptively being, at the top of the ticket. So the question is, who might balance out where she may be somewhat deficient? And that really kind of boils down to, are we a country that will elect a woman? Are we a country that will elect a black woman? And if there are concerns, and there are concerns that that's the case, it is likely, or that may be a push at least, that there is going to be a white man who will be side by side if she is the nominee.
Someone from one of these Midwestern states. Yeah,
we're looking at names like Governor Andy Beshear in Kentucky, Governor Cooper in North Carolina. Are we looking at maybe Josh Shapiro? I would say that we should really be the Democratic Party, and we political scientists are saying senators may not be a smart move in states where they may not be replaced by another Democrat. Probably looking at governors in consideration here.
How does this change the way the Trump campaign moves forward, do you think, from here, Professor?
Well, they've already been teeing it up a bit to be running against Harris. We saw at the convention a lot of Biden-Harris talk. We've already seen Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. and Carrie Lake going, tweeting and with other kind of communication, attacking Kamala Harris. We should expect to see similar attacks against her that we saw in 2020, gendered attacks, racist attacks, tropes and stereotypes. Of course, they will take her to task for the Biden policies that they've already been talking about, but we have this extra level here that we really need to be paying attention to.
What do you think we've learned through this process? And I guess it's easy to ask this question after we have arrived at the point we've arrived today. But do you think, even with a sitting president, a party would be wise to go through a primary that would maybe test that candidate's mettle? And we would have maybe seen, had the Democrats done this, just some of the questions that were being raised about Joe Biden later in this campaign. It's awfully late. This has never happened this late.
You're absolutely right. And it feels quite chaotic. But I think that really what's been chaotic has been the past 3 weeks of not knowing what was going on, the public nature of the debate around whether he should run or not. We can talk about whether he should have run in the first place if he didn't feel he was capable. But we don't have any evidence to suggest that 18 months ago or a year ago he didn't think he was capable, and that this was maybe something that happened relatively in the relative that had just happened, right, relatively quickly. And so I don't know that we could have been prepared for this. I don't know that Joe Biden would have made a different decision. And it's not the party's decision. This was Joe Biden's decision to exit the race.
So I'm curious, as a professor, what your students are saying about all this. Obviously, you haven't been able to talk to them since the announcement today, but I'm sure you've talked about the possibility of this and the historic nature of this. I mean, LBJ, when he pulled out in '68, it was after New Hampshire, as I recall. It's never happened this late. What are they saying, and where are these young voters? Because not many of them are voting.
No, and what's interesting is, while we are in summertime, I've talked to quite a few students today who've reached out in various ways that are like, oh my gosh, what's going on, and what should we think, and what should we do, and we wish we were in class, because they're excited and they're interested. And it's not necessarily they're more excited about one candidate or the other, but they're engaged. They're more engaged than we give them credit for. And I think as I go into August, when I'm back in classes with them, which starts right before the convention, that's really the conversation to be had. Is let's get excited. What's going to get you to vote? What do you need to hear? What can get you motivated? And while chaotic, people are paying attention, and that's really what we need. Based on what you've seen today, is there any doubt in your mind that Kamala Harris will be the nominee? It's a great question. I hate to prognosticate, but I've been, thinking about this for a couple of weeks, that for so many reasons, I think it's very unlikely that she is not accepting that nomination in the Chicago stage in August. For various reasons, some of which we've already talked about, and has been reported that she is showing herself to be the candidate that's unifying the party quickly and energizing parts of the base that were not energized by Joe Biden. It's a tough race against President Trump. It would have been tough for Biden as well. But I would be very surprised if she is not the one accepting that nomination in Chicago next month. Suzanne Chod from North Central College. It's always good to catch up with you. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.